Everyone, today we're going to be talking about plant cells versus animal cells, but we're going to do a quick review first. So our first review question here is, what's the smallest thing that we can consider to be alive? Did you say a cell? Because if you did, that is correct. Remember, cells are the smallest living thing. Here's our next question. Where do new cells come from? Did you say from other cells? Because if you did, that's correct. Remember, scientists thought they could appear magically out of thin air, but then they realized that cells divide to create new cells. Okay, we talked about how when you get a cut, it doesn't stay a cut forever, right? Those new cells grow and they cover up that wound and they create new skin. All right. Now, which part of the cell contains the DNA? I know on this slide I have circle it, that is for if we're in person, but just go ahead and click on the choice that has the DNA. Good, so the nucleus here stores the DNA. Remember we said DNA is like a recipe, has the instructions on how to make proteins. Okay, also kind of directs the cell's activity because that DNA actually tells the cell what to do. What part of the cell makes the proteins? Okay, so we've got the instructions, now we've got to make the proteins. Go ahead and select the choice that makes the proteins. All right, ribosomes, right? These little polka dots, okay? So the DNA has the instructions, and those instructions, we'll talk about this later, but they get sent to the ribosome, and the ribosome then makes the proteins. Right? Which part folds the proteins? Good, this would be the ER, right? So once the ribosomes make the proteins, they then get folded, okay, by the ER, and that's the next step in making proteins. Which part of the cell packages proteins? So once they've been folded, they've got to get packaged. This would be the Golgi body right here. Okay, notice these guys are right by the nucleus here, and there's ribosomes, right? So all this protein making machinery is right here next to each other. And then which part of the cell lets those proteins get outside of the cell? Remember, the cell is going to make proteins. Sometimes they stay in the cell, sometimes they need to leave the cell. Good, that would be the cell membrane. All right, awesome. So now we're going to talk about plant and animal cells. If you don't have your notebook, go ahead and grab your notebook. This can be your title, Plant versus Animal Cells. We won't have very many notes on this. Our goal today is to compare and contrast. So compare meaning what's similar and contrast what's different between plant and animal cells. So before we write anything in our notes, let's take a look at a picture. This shows us an animal cell and a plant cell. I want you to tell me 2 ways that these cells are similar. In that text box on the right, go ahead and tell me 2 ways that these cells are similar. You might have told me, oh, Miss Frankston, they're both cells. That would be correct. You might have said, oh, they both have a nucleus. They both have cytoplasm. They both have a cell membrane. They both have mitochondria. And you would be correct. Okay, so all of these cells are going to have nucleus, cytoplasm, cell membrane, mitochondria. That makes them similar. Now I want you to tell me in that textbook text box, how are these cells different? And you probably told me, oh, the plant cell, it's a different shape, okay? Or the plant cell has a big vacuole, or the plant cell is chloroplasts and a cell wall. All of those make the plant cell different from the animal cell. So we're going to go ahead and write these down in our notes. So what I need you to do is copy this sentence up top. Plant cells are different from animal cells because they have, and we're going to write down those differences. All right, The first thing that you guys told me plant cells have, they have a cell wall. Okay. Remember, all cells are going to have a cell membrane to let stuff in and out. Plant cells, though, have a cell wall. And this is going to give it extra support. So if you think about animals, most animals have bones or they have some type of skeleton, right? Like insects have something called an exoskeleton. They've got some hard parts that help hold them up. Well, plant cells don't really have any hard parts. So they need something to help hold them upright. And the cell wall in each one of their cells helps them do that. They also have a large vacuole. I know on our previous picture, it showed us that the animal cell didn't have a vacuole. Well, animal cells do have vacuoles. The problem is they're just smaller. And the reason that plants have a large vacuole is because they need to store water. Lots of water. A plant can't just decide it's going to get up and go get a drink from the faucet if it wants some water or from a pond, right? Plants are stationary, they don't move. So anytime they want to drink, they've got to get it from the rain. And if it's not going to rain in a while, they need to make sure they have enough water stored up. The last thing that plant cells have are chloroplasts, okay? So chloroplasts are what are going to do photosynthesis, and photosynthesis turns sunlight into sugar for the plant. Animals don't need chloroplasts because most animals are able to eat food or eat some type of sugar or substance that will give them energy. That is it for today. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you guys all soon.